Hey, what's up, All Stars? Today we are excited to have a very special show for you. We were fortunate enough to score an interview with Dr. Partha Nandi from the Dr. Nandi Show. Links are in the bio below. We are psyched about this interview and we are going to kick it off right now. Enjoy.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to sell everything and travel the country at the tender age of 50? Well, with our last kid off to college and the ability to now work remotely, we've decided to do just that. So we're selling the house, loading up the dog, and hitting every city from California to Florida. We're scouring the country for a new place to call home and dragging you into every restaurant, Airbnb, and tourist trap we encounter along the way. This is the Skiptown All-Stars podcast.
We've been given little sneak peeks all over social media about our special guest, and now you are here. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, first of all, I'm excited that I met somebody who finally skipped town. So, we all want to skip town sometimes when stuff's getting, but you guys actually did it. So I commend both of you. So I'm Dr. Partha Nandi. I practice medicine in Metro Detroit. I'm the host of a show called the Dr. Nandi Show, and I do the health news on our ABC affiliate WXYZ. So I'm excited to meet both of you and talk to you for a little bit.
That's great.
Since we travel, a little bit of our backstory. We sold everything in Los Angeles and we hit the road. We skipped town to, travel and find a new place to call home. One of the biggest struggles we did not foresee, we outlined many things that we knew would be troublesome on the road. Everyone thinks it's wonderful, and it is, but there are a few things that, you run into little snags. And one of them has been our health. And when you're on the road, you can't go to an urgent care every time you start to feel a cold coming on, or you start to feel a sinus infection coming on. So to have you here and help us, ourselves personally, and also other travelers, to take something to do something to help alleviate a cold or help alleviate a sickness or shorten it through a natural remedy is so key for us as travelers. Also, obviously, going back to just the person at home, whether or not you're traveling, what you can do at home, but especially for us, we've all heard, the crazy stories and with flu season upon us, and everyone I think is struggling right now with being sick. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, doctor, it's a little overwhelming when you're in the middle of a 4 or 6 hour road trip. And you are suddenly you're feeling a little under the weather and you're standing in the middle of a CVS somewhere. There's a whole wall of vitamins. Well, actually, there's a fraction of a wall of vitamins. And then there's a whole wall of cold cough remedy cures. Any spotlight anybody can help you shed in that moment is a tremendous value because we've been there.
Yeah. So
we've all been there, right? If you have kids, that they're always, not always, but often sick. But I go back to something very important. I think that even if you're on the road like you guys are, or people that are on the go all the time, one of the fundamental things about immunity is rest, right? That's you've got to. People say, well, I've got so much to do, but your body, especially when it goes to deep restorative sleep. So it's not just REM sleep, but even deeper than that. Your body then gives a signal to the rest of the entire system that it's now time to repair, because you no longer have to be on guard for something. Your body has to shut down in order to be able to repair. That's the immune system as well. All these cells. So there's all these cells in the immune system that need to be rejuvenated. Your body has to replace them, et cetera, repair. But if you're not, you're constantly going. And I'm sure it's not easy with what you're doing to get the rest you need, right? But I'd say for adults, you can at least get 6 hours. That would be great. 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Not just, 4 here and then I'll do 8 there. It's like really 6 hours, because your body needs, if you deprive your body of sleep, it needs 48 to 72 hours to get that back again. Wow. So it's important to be able to get that sleep. I cannot stress how important that is. Wow. The second thing is, and I will talk about the wall of the medicines, but the second thing is food and nutrition. One of the things that I know when I travel, and it's very difficult to eat in any way that's healthy, because everywhere you go, I mean, our SAD diet, right? Our standard American diet it just helps you to really not have anything go right with your immune system. So what do I mean? I mean, the food that's made is made to make sure that your brain's, entertainment center is happy, right? So all the simple carbohydrates, right, and then bad fats. It's not just carbs, it's the bad fats. People go, well, that would have me a big piece of steak, with all this stuff on it, and that's what's going to help me. It doesn't. So what do we need to do? We need to be able to, and it's very simple stuff, right? But when you're on the road, you try to find, even at the McDonald's or whatever fast food place you go, try to find the salad. If you need to eat a sandwich, try to find one that's not fried. There's always a grilled option, right? And try to find one with some vegetables on it, if there's tomatoes or lettuce, right? And try to tell them, I don't want the mayonnaise. So you try to, even when you're traveling, right? And people say, well, I can't do it because I'm traveling. Even when you're traveling, try to have fruits and vegetables. Try to be able to have things that are not deep fried, that don't give you bad fats and bad carbohydrates. And why is that, right? Why does that matter to your immune system? Because it affects something called your gut, and it affects something called your microbiome. So microbiome are trillions of bugs that are living in your intestinal system, having a good old time until you give them the nuclear bomb called like the sandwich with fries and a shake. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what the heck happened? We were having a great time. And they just, doused us. You've seen those movies where like they take one of those flamethrowers and kill everybody. That's what we do.
Right.
So when you kill the microbiome like that, guess what happens? Your immune system is altered. Your gut is one of the biggest centers of your immune system, even though it doesn't seem like it would make sense. The gut is a place where you're putting anything that you possibly can in your mouth that's not sterile, right? It's the first place where your immune system has to interact with the world to say, this fits, this does not. Imagine the millions and millions of times your body has to recognize what's good and what's bad. Part of that is through this microbiome. The microbiome actually creates products that help you regulate your immune system. So if you put crap in it, it creates disarray, and your immune system is affected.
We do try to take the healthier choice all the time, because that's just kind of who we are anyway. But look, I'm no stranger to a burger, fries, and a shake on an occasion. So I indulge in that, and I do love it. So we are actively doing that while we travel, because we know how important it is not to, we obviously don't want to drive when we're tired. And we know that we have to take a break, and we want to visit restaurants on the road. So we do get out and try not to eat through drive-through food. We do prepare some healthy snacks in the car if we can. We're still finding ourselves we're still finding that I am getting sick all the time. And I just, one of the things that I wanted to mention to you was that I've always kind of been a sickly person, meaning that I always get a typical cold twice a year. It's been like this since I was a child. My mom would always say, oh, you have just such a poor immune system. Okay, so maybe there's some truth to that. I have no idea. All I know is I get sick twice a year, and it's usually lasts for a good 7 to 10 days. Since we've been on the road, which has been 6 months now, we've been on the road 7 months, 6 months. I've now been sick once a month. And what happens is that I get sick, and it lasts for about 7 to 10 days, which leaves me only for 2 weeks, 2 healthy weeks out of the month. And then I get sick again. And that has been so challenging, doctor. I mean, I'm still sick right now. I have a cough. James just got diagnosed with pneumonia. He got sick for the first time. And we had to cancel one of our trips because I wanted to be like somewhere. I didn't want to be on the road. I wanted to be somewhere. So I guess we should just kind of get right to it as to please tell me, what is the number one myth buster that you have heard about if you're starting to get sick, that you've heard that you're like, that is ridiculous? The
one that really bothers me actually also is the colloidal silver, right? I mean, it's kind of this thing
that's on my list. That's actually on my list to ask you. Start talking about that.
I'm very open to lots of different things, I feel. But when something can actually cause damage to your body, I get worried about even bringing it up to people, because I'm even worried that some of your listeners may not even have heard of it and then go take it. So colloidal silver is something that's been used for a long time, because, people didn't have antibiotics before, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, but they had silver. So the way it works is silver attracts moisture then causes a reaction. The reaction then produces something called silver ions, which is a active component that goes and starts, this kind of inflammatory process, and poof, it kills the bugs. So that's the idea. And there are people that swear by it, but the problem is that if it accumulates, it can cause damage to your body. And if you take it over time, it can cause real damage to your body. So that's one I think that is really troublesome for me. So
I was going to say, I read somewhere that there was a whole family of people in like the Tennessee Valley or something like that. Their skin is actually purple or blue because of their overconsumption of colloidal silver. Is that right?
You should never, it's exactly right. You should never ingest it. No matter what people tell you, do not ingest it. People take it lots of different ways. Some people inhale it, some people gargle it, but do not ingest it, because then you're really putting in your body, and you don't. The problem is that nobody's regulating this, right? These are all food additives. So your government doesn't have enough resources to say every single food additive or every single supplement has to be looked at. So that's one I would say, if you ask my number one, I would just avoid it. Okay. But back to your point, both of you said something important, that you try to do all these things and you're still getting sick. And Denise, you've really gotten sick your whole life, you're saying. So what I would do, anybody who's in your situation, is make sure you see an infectious disease or immunology doctor to make sure there's not some, undiagnosed disorder, and it may be something that's mild of your immune system. There are people that still have disorders of immune system. So, maybe one of your cells are not, one of your parts of your body are not functioning as well. So it's important to know that you don't have severe infections, obviously, but having, colds your entire life, twice a year. Did your mom or dad give you antibiotics when you got sick?
No.
Remember?
No, not at all. No.
So a lot of my patients, what's that?
It was orange juice, doctor. It was
there you go.
A glass of orange juice, honey. Yeah, that's what it was.
That'd be good. So a lot of my patients get antibiotics again and again, and destroys it. So here's what I would say. I think that having a good nutrition plan, would be really helpful. So one that has vitamin C, you can take supplements, right? But lots of fruits have vitamin C, right? You have the citrus fruits, you can have berries, all kinds of things. To me, vitamin C is important. Your mom was not, or dad was not totally off the mark, and orange juice helps because it has vitamin C. But vitamin C is important. To me, it's not going to, when you have a cold, taking vitamin C is not going to make your cold go away. It does have immune properties, no doubt about it. So there was a Nobel Prize winner, Linus Pauling, who made this very popular. This is the beginning of the 20th century. Would take mega doses of it. You don't need to take mega doses of it. You just take whatever the normal recommended is, 90 milligrams or so. It should be fine. But take that and have foods that contain that, right? There are a lot of my patients.
Really quick, hold on. That vitamin C combined with vitamin D. That's the concoction. Like, if you take that, you will knock your cold in half. Is that true?
Well, vitamin D also is super important for no. So that's but it's super important for your immune function. Here's what vitamin D is. So people like me who live in the Midwest, where you feel like you have to pray to a sun god because you never see the sun. It's a big deal, because it affects your immune system. If you have deficiency in vitamin D, I don't know where you grew up, Denise. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Chicago. He grew up in Ohio. So we're both Midwesterners.
Yeah, we're both from the same region you are.
We're with you.
I bet you lots of your friends and are vitamin D deficient. So many of my patients are. It really is important for immune function. It's important when you get the cold, but it's also before you get the cold, or whatever infection, because it affects that. So absolutely. But taking it together, it's going to make your your cold go away. Probably not. But here's the thing. Garlic, we eat literally every single day, I think, almost onion and garlic together every single day. And garlic is really a great immune modulator. It really helps. I mean, I can get technical, T helper cells, but bottom line is that helps your immune system get coordinated. So I love garlic. And there are actually some studies that show that it can decrease the duration of a cold. Now here's where the devils are in the details, right? So the doses of garlic are probably not what you and I would have in your Italian dish. It's like, big doses that you'd have. Listen, my mom and I, and we used to have spinach, and we're the only ones in the family that did this. We would saute a little spinach, put some turmeric in it, and we would eat the garlic, like little cloves of garlic cold. We loved it.
I love
how
the garlic on
stinky
bread.
though? How stinky
So
are you
good.
walking around if you're taking garlic all the time?
Well, not all the time, but you can, if you take it every day. Listen, it's part of life, right? I mean, you eat garlic, maybe you chew some gum, it's okay. But some people really don't like it, so they take garlic supplements. If you take a garlic supplement, that's okay as well. So the way I look at supplements, you have to look at the source.
Yeah, we were going to ask you about this.
Yeah, you look at the source, you look at the bottle, and you turn it around and say, where is it made? And do some research. It's going to take some time. You go back to the company and see, do they third party it? Is it coming from who knows where? And what kind of manufacturing processes are there? You'll see that some are certified by, some standards in the industry, which means that somebody actually goes to the plant and looks at the product and it looks at the bioavailability. The one thing about supplements, they'll tell you there's a gazillion grams in it, but it may not be bioavailable. So how do you know? You go and you look at the source, you look at the reviews, and you have to do some research. But if you have high quality garlic, I think you can do well. You can put it in your food. You don't have to do what I just did. I mean, I think nobody else in my family except my mom and I did that. But you have minced garlic, right? And you put it in your foods. Yeah. I like when you can incorporate things in your food. Another big one is turmeric. If you're able to do that, if you put turmeric in your food, obviously on the road it's very difficult. But if you're at home, if like people like us, we're at home, you can put turmeric in your food. Does not change the taste. It just changes the color. You can put it in your eggs. You can put it in whatever dish you want. We put turmeric in our food every single day. Now, does it mean we don't get sick? We do, but it's pretty rare. We don't get sick very often.
Yeah.
I've heard that turmeric can be put, a couple different things, because we've also heard this before and we actually have it. You mentioned, I want to go back really quick. Hold on. Garlic. Raw garlic or cooked garlic? Is cooked garlic the same effect as raw garlic? Like
it's not but it's very close. So you can have cooked garlic. No problem.
And then turmeric. Right. Somebody asked me, I was talking about this and I said you could put turmeric in like your tea or your food. And they said, oh no, I heard turmeric can only be transferred to the body effectively through an oil. Is that
some
true?
Sort of vehicle.
It's optimal, right? It's optimal. It doesn't mean it cannot be. But if you want to be able to get the best effects of it, yes. But you can still put it in your food, and it's still, we put it in our food. I don't take a supplement. I put it in my food every single day, and it's heated up. It's in my food. So it works. It's about working 90% versus 70. To me, people are not doing anything. So if you can put it in your food, it's better to me than taking a pill every day. But if you can't put it in your food, it's not possible for you. I think it's almost impossible. Yeah. Because where are you going to find an Indian restaurant?
I know.
Yeah, you just take a supplement, but take a high quality supplement, and you make sure that you look at it's. Once you look at the research, you guys are pretty intelligent. You can see, you can look at the bioavailability. You can look at where it's manufactured. I don't want to poo-poo other countries, but if they're processed in some country where there's no regulations, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't even know if it's turmeric. It's very difficult. So I think here is where you want to pay for things if you can afford it. If you're going to buy a supplement, pay the right price. You don't have to pay exorbitant amounts, but don't try to cheap it out. So many of my patients go to whatever store and just find the cheapest one. And if you look at it, so for example, the multivitamins that you have, right? It seems like all of them are the same. But if you have for example, calcium in a type of salt like carbonate, it's not as bioavailable. And so it's cheaper. You think you're getting all the good stuff, but you're not. So it's important to look at the label and then do the research. And it's going to take some work, but it's your health, right? So to back to your question, what else can you do? A lot of my patients take echinacea. I think it's a good supplement. It really helps your immune system.
We used to take echinacea.
We used to argue about it.
And
she would always try and get me to take it, and I'd be like, it doesn't, like, I wasn't buying in,
Well, because there's so much crap out there, James. There's like so much crap. People are selling, like human poop and putting it in something, and you're going to get great. But echinacea actually has some studies. It actually works with two parts of your immune system. It's called the innate and adaptive. It's these technical words, but in general, it actually helps your immune system. So I don't mind when people take echinacea. I do mind when they take colloidal silver, because when you can damage your body, it all bets are off, right?
I want to talk about when you feel a cold coming on, because that to me, it's like a train coming at you that you can't stop. So we're talking about how to, help a cold, move.
That's already in progress.
Yeah, a cold that's already in progress. You mentioned echinacea is good for that. You also mentioned, you can take garlic while the cold is in progress. But I know when I get a sore throat, I know I'm going to be down for the count now in about 24 hours. Tell me, doctor. And I know other people have different symptoms. My sister-in-law gets a watery eye.
As do I.
Yeah, some people get a runny nose. You know the symptom. The minute you feel it, doctor, what can you do? Because when we're on the road and I feel that symptom, I start panicking. I start going to get green tea from Starbucks. I start grabbing orange juice. He thinks the green tea, he calls bullshit on it. He's like, stop with the green tea. He's like, that's not going to help you. But what I need is your recommendation on when we all feel the symptoms, is there a way to stop it in its place, or is that just a joke? It's going to come anyway.
I think that it's, once you have it, it's going to run its course. What you're trying to do is decrease the duration and the severity of it. So here's where you can come with Western medicine and Eastern medicine, right? We have a lot of medications that can help you, right? So there's big brand names, but if you look at the back, there's a compound called dextromethorphan. That's typically for people who have coughs. If you have a cough that's starting, then that's the medicine. But others, like you take an antihistamine that can help you to be able to do exactly the watery eyes for James and I think your sister. And then you can, if to loosen things up, right? There's guaifenesin. There's multiple brands like Robitussin, NyQuil, Alka-Seltzer Plus, but they all have those components. So the antihistamine, and they have something called guaifenesin, which is to break up the mucus. And the third one is dextromethorphan, which actually works with your brain to suppress cough. Because coughing is just, it's just, unbearable because you can't sleep with it, etc. The other one is acetaminophen, which helps you with Sotalol, right? So acetaminophen helps you with the symptoms like a sore throat, like feeling malaise. So you've got those things that'll help you immediately start feeling better. Then you take the garlic. If you're hopefully taking vitamin C, you should still take it. I would not recommend getting 2 grams of vitamin C all of a sudden because you have a cold. I would just take your normal dose, but you should be taking it all the time. If you're not, please take it during the cold. And I think echinacea would also help. So those kinds of things help to decrease the duration of the cold.
But there's no way to stop it when you feel it coming. There's no way.
Listen, I think that people say it's going to stop it and they'll give you stories when it did, but there's really no evidence for that. But there's evidence to decrease the duration. And then that's when you really hunker down on your food, right? And you hunker down on your rest. You want to rest even more than 6 hours. You want to be able to really eat clean because all that helps because your body's is now in full mode. I mean, if you could see what your body's doing, it's an absolute code red. The entire system is trying to prevent you from dying. And that's how it looks at it. So I don't think you can stop it at its track. I think green tea is not bad if it's warm, if it's hot, because any liquid like that's warm, that'll help you to decrease congestion. It'll help to loosen up your mucus. That's what I like. I drink.
That's why a lot of people go to broth, right? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no. Broth. Chicken broth actually has been studied to help the immune system. The chicken broth and the products in chicken broth specifically, chicken noodle soup, it actually has been shown to help to decrease the duration of an illness, believe it or not. Yeah. So if you can get chicken noodle soup, hot, warm, I think it helps. I really think that the heat and the warmness helps to be able to decrease congestion and decrease mucus. So the green tea, I'm not sure it's really like bolstering your immune system, but it's helping you feel better because it just decreases some of the mucus and congestion. But I would not be shy. This is what I don't like. I'll tell you, there are people they're all Western medicine. They will not touch a supplement because it's horrible and everything sucks. There are people who are supplements and they love supplements and Eastern medicine will not touch a NyQuil or any kind of Western medicine. I mean, that's to me is like, it doesn't make sense. You can do both. I do both when I get sick. And the other part is that right now, and if you look at it, they call it the tridemic, right? You got a bunch of people that have been cooped up for a couple of years,
right,
in a home, not facing anything, right? So what happens to your immune system, and maybe that's why, James, have you ever had a pneumonia before?
I've never had it before, no.
And so what we're seeing, a lot of our patients are that they've been cooped up, they've not been exposed to anything for a couple of years. Now they go out to the open. Yeah. It's kind of like hiding in a closet for 2 years and then not gradually going out, but like running out into the sunshine, like the sound of music. It's like, and then your body is like, what just happened? And that's what's happening to our immune system. Okay. Even those 2 years, can you imagine that? Even those 2 years have affected us. Tons of people. Like if I go to the emergency room right now, there are people in the hallways, all with either the flu, RSV is coming down right now, or COVID. I mean, it's just they're a combination of this. And that's what's happening right now. And you're on the road, you're meeting all these people, and I'm assuming you're interacting with all these different people.
we are, for sure.
Varying levels of immunity to anything. You go to some places, where COVID is still a myth. It doesn't exist, or other places where people are afraid to even look at you or touch you. So you're going to varying communities, and I think that's also currently what's happening to you. But even if this was 2018, if we had this conversation, I think we could talk about being on the road, even though you're doing all those things, is a stressor. It's stressful doing what you're doing, even though you're enjoying it. It is a completely different thing than your body, and your body's is now expending energy trying to accommodate that rather than doing the healing and building your immune system. That makes a difference. It's not a myth that says if you're completely stressed and you're worn out that you're going to get sick. It's physiologically understandable.
Okay, that makes total sense, because as much as we are enjoying it, you're right. It is stressful. Like we feel the stress. It's so silly to say that, and we don't talk about it too much, how stressful it is. So I'm really glad that you said that, because you're the first person in 6 months that has actually like even mentioned that it could be stressful, and it is. Like I know this is silly. It's like first world problems, but like where are we going to stay? But are we going to run out of gas? Like things like that. Like we'll look at the gas tank because we've been talking or, planning the show. And then all of a sudden we realize like, oh no, we have to find a gas station. And we had a dog with us for 6 months. The dog needed to go to the bathroom. Some hotels didn't take a dog. Is our car going to get broken into?
Yeah,
like, oh, that was like huge.
And by the way, we have 3 kids in 3 different states. So, we're dealing with sort of 3 college age, early adult age kids who, have their own set of problems, and we're still trying to parent from the road.
Yes.
We're still trying to budget from the road. We're still trying to work. I mean,
he works.
The whole premise of our podcast is that you can work remotely now. You don't have to be tied to a city. And so,
in addition to the podcast, you actually,
the podcast, and forget it. The podcast is a whole new wrinkle. Like even this morning setting up for this, I was like stressing out. So, I'll get into you about my well, actually, I guess there's no better time actually to talk about my cortisol levels, because when you were talking about it earlier, it really struck a chord with me. And you said something specifically way back in the beginning about being purposeful. And if you were to go back and listen about 6 episodes or 7 episodes ago, I actually talked at length about how all of a sudden we got here in Florida. The base camp right next to Denise's brother, like Denise checked it off the box, mission accomplished for her. The kids are all into their schools, mission accomplished for them. And now all of a sudden, James found himself sort of lacking purpose. Like, what is my next thing? And so between that, going back to work, continuing the podcast, and obviously holiday travels, et cetera, I really do think I was in a compromised state when we were in Los Angeles and that head cold first struck, It
was all those combined.
I mean, listen, if anybody who's had kids know that the problems just get bigger as they get bigger, right? It's like in the beginning, it was, I want this toy, and he or she wants a toy, and you're fighting to kill themselves. And then that's a problem that you can solve. Then as they get older, the problems just get bigger. It doesn't get smaller. It's, and so think about what that does to your psyche. So your body then your body is very simple. Even though it's very complex, it's very simple. It does not know that you have these emotional problems. It sees a threat.
Wow.
So when you have your kid calls you up and says, I don't know what they said, but whatever it is, and it's like, and all of a sudden your body is like, it acts as if a tiger is chasing you. And it's not an oversimplification. It's really what happens every single time.
Wow.
If it happens a couple of times a day, it's all good. If it happens 1,000 times a day, like some of my patients, it is a huge problem because that compromises your health because it's disease states everywhere. I mean, your cortisol levels are through the roof. I mean, from what you're describing, it's insane. I mean, I know you're enjoying what you're doing, but right. I mean, it is a less than ideal situation because you're not just out there skipping town. You're skipping town while you're still in town, and that's like, listen, you're not asking me for advice, but it's no way to live. You've got to have a solution, otherwise, it's going to get worse. Because forget about health goals, we're talking about cardiovascular disease, right? I mean, when you look at heart disease, people think it's a plumbing problem. Like you get a big thing that, clogs your heart and you get a heart attack. Really, it's an inflammatory condition. So a little plaque can sit there, but when you add inflammation, that blocks it off suddenly and you die of a heart attack. Wow. Right? So people in their 40s and 50s, that's the number one cause of death. So I would say, after this podcast, I would sit down and say, what is it you want to do? Because if you're working podcast and you're on the road, don't know when the next place you're going to be or where you're going to live and stay. And these are not first world problems. These are like real problems because if you're stuck on the road in, what is this, January? I mean, that sucks, right? I mean, it's not a small problem. So of course, it's similar to someone not having a job and then, struggling, or somebody with their midlife crisis having a breakdown. I mean, we know people have that. So it's not just purposeful, but it's focused. I mean, at some point, all of us have to say, what do we not want to do in order to live? It's not about thriving, it's living. Because all you do is go from one step to the next, and all of a sudden you're 75 years old and you go, what the heck just happened, right? Mm-hmm. And what did I do this? So it's about having a purposeful life, but if you have so many purposes, it's difficult to concentrate on one. And you tell yourself, what's the most important thing, and do it. Now, of course, there's life, right? I mean, if you have expenses and all that, all of us have to do what sometimes we don't really want to do. But I would say examine that. I mean, beyond just your immediate health with the immune system, but I'm talking about your overall long-term health. This is what kills Americans. And people don't know. They go, Doctor, why is it that we have 38-year-olds that are getting these cancers I've never seen before? Crazy. Our colon cancer, right? They move the age back to 45. Why? Because younger and younger people are getting colon cancer. I had a 28-year-old with a 1 centimeter polyp. It's difficult to tell you how unusual that is. It's happening more and more.
Why?
And is it just diet?
Why? What's bringing that on? Is
well,
it
I mean,
stress? Is it
you ever seen a 20-year-old nowadays? I mean, they're going to have neck problems. They're never off this thing, right? And what does that do? I mean, it is the equivalent of crack cocaine, because
I agree.
I'll look at my TikTok and I got to see what just happened, right? Or if I posted, heaven forbid, I post something, I got to check every minute. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you post, but it's kind of like this compelling thing to see how many people like something, how many people comment on something. And this is just a fraction of what happens. So this is a big problem for anybody who's over 10.
But so a 27-year-old comes in with a polyp. Is it because they haven't been active? They haven't been eating? They're sitting in a chair looking at their phone? I mean, you're going to see more of this then. Like, this is going to be
it's all the above. Denise, all the above. So they're putting their head down. They're not moving. Right. I mean, you see kids, they'll sit for 6 hours and just talk to each other on this thing without saying a word. Right. So you got that. And then on top of that, the stresses that creates, it's not just sitting there not doing anything, the stresses that creates that a lot of us didn't have when we were growing up. So all these things are increasing your cortisol level, and they're eating food that's genetically engineered, like lots of people didn't have. So I haven't talked about this at all during our conversation, but most foods are GMOs. They're not organic. And people say, who cares? Well, here's why it matters. So seeds were created to be genetically modified. Why? Because you had places in the world that did not support nutrition. So it was great that food scientists, figured out some little seed that would grow in any kind of climate. Now they said, wait a minute, if that grows in this horrible place, bring it over here. We can grow and make tons of money. And again, that's great. But what happens is that the nutritional value of food has completely gone away. So the same nutrient-dense foods no longer have nutrients. So when you don't have nutrients, what does that do to your health? It decimates it. So a small factor, some cofactor we talk about in the food that used to be there is no longer there. Well, over time, that affects your immune system, or that affects your circulatory system. And why is that important? That immune system problem then is what prevents you from growing these aberrant little cells. And if that factor in your immune system is not there, or immune system not as strong, you have these little cells that grow and become cancer. The number one way we fight cancer is our immune system. It is like the CIA, the FBI, the whatever, the local police. They root out all these cells that are rogue. And what's cancer, right? Cancer are just rogue cells that have grown up. It's almost like if you had 5 people in your country that said, anarchy, we're going to burn the country down. Why is that going to affect you? But if that 5 becomes 5 million, it's a problem. That's what cancer is in your body. Your body is a very ordered system. When you have disorder and disarray, brought out by inflammation, brought on by your immune system not working well, brought on by every system in your body being in disarray. Your brain and your gut works together. And so when you are under this much stress and this much upheaval, our kids are, if you really talk to them, what's going on with them is it's unprecedented. So when you have that going on, the rest of your body is not functioning. So of course you're going to have disease that manifests in people with cancer at a young age, people with autoimmune disease at like astronomical rates. You have people with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. You have people with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. You have thyroiditis. All kinds of issues that are happening that we didn't have before. Well, some people say, well, it's not being diagnosed.
Real quick, I was going to ask you about that. So in the past several years, I've had family members or friends diagnosed with certain things, and it just seems to be like a recurring thing now, like more and more. Are you seeing that in your practice? Like Crohn's disease, these types of, I had never heard of it 20 years ago,
Yeah, part of it, James and Denise, is that it's that we have better diagnostic tools, right? That's part of it. So better technology, we can diagnose them. People are not blowing you off and saying, especially women, forever they pat you in the back and said, you're stressed, and everything is you're stressed. This is the truth with especially women, less men. So we have better diagnostic tools. People are more aware. But beyond all that, clearly your body's immune system is in disarray. So autoimmune disease, which is what Crohn's disease is, lots and lots of diseases that are manifesting in different ways. You have psoriatic arthritis. Every single disease that's autoimmune has increased. And remember, I told you about gut health, right? So when your gut health is in disarray, your body cannot recognize what's normal and what's abnormal. So then it's again like putting your kid in the closet and then getting them out into society and say, here you go for it. Well, your immune system often has to do that, and they cannot recognize which is normal and what's abnormal. So it's the beginning of autoimmune disease. So all these factors together, and it really begins at a young age. My 3-year-old knows how to work my phone.
Right.
He watched us because we use it. But we don't give it to him because we know what the problems are. But every single child in America knows how to use these devices. So that's not just it. You talk about kids with video games. These gamers, they will sit for 6 hours and play whatever it is, those games where you're shooting people and games where you're putting things in things. So you get all these issues that are then causing your body to be in disarray, and your immune system especially. To me, the gut is the center of all of this, right? If your gut is not in balance, then what happens is that there's something called intestinal permeability. It's a big topic, but in simple words, it's one cell layer thick between where your poop is and where your blood is. Imagine that one cell layer thick is what protects us from stuff going across. Imagine if you continue to give it a bunch of crap, talking about your gut and your intestinal system, you start to develop little leaks. And those little leaks are the beginnings of inflammation that affects your entire body, including your brain and including your heart, including your immune system. So I'm simplifying it a little bit, but that's what's happening. And it's not stopping. It's just getting worse because think about not having your phone for 2 days. What would you do? I mean, I know it would be tough for me because I use this to plan my day. I use it to sometimes see patients.
Well, have you ever seen a teenager lose their phone? They have to go to a mental hospital.
Cry.
Yeah.
No, it's a full-on mental breakdown. Yeah.
I've seen it in our own children.
Yeah, their life is over if they lose their phone or if it happens to fall and crack. That's, I think, worse.
I had a daughter who forgot her Snapchat login, and it was like a Rain Man episode. It was just a spell that came over her.
So to go back to, if you have your phone gone for 2 days, it's problematic, traumatic. It causes stress on your system, but it's probably the best thing for you.
It is, but I think what can we do, right? So it's not the world's going to end tomorrow. It's so we where we live, we have snow, right? We're not in Los Angeles, so we had like 9 inches of snow, and my kids, my 9 and 10-year-old, were just giddy as could be. Mm-hmm. So we purposely didn't get a snow service to clean our driveway because I wanted my kids to go out there. Nice. They were beyond excited. I mean, they're fighting on who's going to use the snowblower to really clear out the driveway.
Well done, Dad. Well done.
I mean, but it's not like it's a lot of effort. They got their big brooder trucks with the shovel. They're out there, shoveling with their mini trucks. And the point is, it takes effort from us, which are parents. If we're talking about kids,
to hand them the phone. It's so much easier as parents to hand them the phone.
Well, and we're on our phone all the time. They see us head down, looking at whatever. I mean, it could be work, but we do it, right? So we do it, they do it. And you're right. If you give them some electronic device, they're good for hours. It's like a built-in babysitter. So it's a little harder. But when you look at cultures that have the best longevity, but not just longevity to the 90s living in a nursing home, longevity living with their communities, you'll see what they do. They spend time with each other. It's more difficult for us because it requires effort, but that effort brings you joy. And the other thing that I will talk about has nothing to do with the immune system that we mentioned, in the beginning of the show. But we tend to abandon our very young and our very old. Oh, so the very young, you send them off to daycare because you got to build that big house and the big car. I'm sorry, I'm being a little judgmental here, but I'll tell you, it's better sometimes to have a little less money and more time at a formidable age, the first year of life, and the bonding that you get and the brain growth potential that the kids have is just never more important than the first couple of years of their life. So if you're able to, lots of my patients, I talk to them about this, do you really need all the stuff that you need? Can one of you, maybe do less to help your kids? If you do that, right? If you can get them and nurture them a little bit more and spend the time, I think it'd be great. Now, if you need to work, I get it. But a lot of us put them in a daycare or whatever it is, and then when they're older, I don't want to be bothered by them. Put them in assisted living, nursing home. You got these boundaries. I'm good to go. It's more difficult to have grandma and grandpa within your lives. In your life's a meaningful way. And guess what that does? Every culture, if you look at what are called green zones, they incorporate their older people that are part of their community into their community, because what it does for the older folks is that it gives them this sense of purpose, the number one thing we're talking about, James, and gives them a reason to continue to go on, and they don't have that unrest that then takes their lives. And the young folks, they have this incredible wisdom and somebody who has the time and the willingness to be patient with them and really helps them understand, because they're not going for the next thing. They're not saying, okay, if I do this, I'll be at the next level of my career, or whatever it is, right? They can do that. So I think part of it is our culture, is that if we can change it so that we're not, it's a strong word, abandoning, but really paying attention to our very young and very old, we can change this dynamic. Because like my kids, I'll tell you, we hardly ever eat outside. And then when they do, we had a get together for the station I was in, and they had, I think, some kind of a barbecue. and they said, "Oh, let me help your son." So somebody from the station gave my middle son a plate of food with a burger and fries and ketchup, and my son looked at it and said, "We just don't do that." And I was embarrassed because here's my son, this poor man's trying to help him. So I didn't love how it happened, but it struck me that what we do every day is so important. That's what they know. That's what they will tell other people. Yeah. This is how you do it on a microscopic level, right? On a macro level, you can say that, what are we going to do with these problems? On a micro level, you as a parent, you as a family can change the dynamic for generations. And that's how you do it. You do it one step at a time. And it's part of the reason why you're doing the podcast, part of the reason why I do my television show, and because I can impart that. Listen, if you can make these small changes, they're not big changes. They can have dramatic effects in your life. And it not just lasts for a year, but it can last for generations. So that's what's compelling about some of the things. The problems are unbelievable. I mean, healthcare costs in America are just through the roof. And we still don't have the best healthcare by any stretch of the imagination, right? But if we can do some of these things that we're talking about, simple things, we're not talking about things that cost $1 million, right? People say, well, I can't eat vegetables, they're expensive. Well, just go to the frozen section. Some of the freshest vegetables are frozen at the peak and put in these things. They're not always expensive. So there's ways to get around it.
I agree. I think that there are ways to get around most things to make your life better. And what I mean by that is, you had mentioned like how we abandon our old and our young. And I am with you 100%. And the word abandon is harsh. Some people have a necessity, but I think we can be honest in this conversation and say, not everyone has a necessity. Some people want that bigger car. I mean, I can just pull back from our own experience really quick. When he first started television editing, I had an opportunity to go back to work, and we both felt it was important that I stay home. And both of us felt that way. I had the opportunity, but we felt that way. He took a bus into Hollywood every night. We shared one car. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment.
Right, we did.
So I could be home with our daughter. And then the second daughter came, and look, I made really good money before I got pregnant. He started making good money. There's no question that we could have lived in a really big house, probably a year and a half after we had our daughter. Yeah. We were still in our apartment because it was important to us for me to be home with the kid. And then, the second kid, and then the third kid. And I would say this to my friends. One girlfriend really quick called and was crying because after 6 weeks of being home on maternity leave, her husband was really pushing her to go back to work. And she said to me, I don't want to go. I just had this baby. I don't want to put him in daycare. He's 6 weeks old. And I said to her, why don't you sell your motorcycle? They had 2 cars, a boat, and a motorcycle. I said, why don't you sell your motorcycle? It was like a Harley. And I said, you could get like $12,000 for it. That's 1 year of childcare. And she's like, oh, my husband won't let me do it. So it's about the choices you make. I mean, I really think people make excuses going back to now the food, like, oh, I can't buy fresh vegetables. Well, you're right. You can buy frozen. Sure. She didn't have to go back to work. They could have sold their Harley. I mean, it's tough choices though, because then you're down to we were down to 1 car. We were still living in an apartment when everyone else had a home. I mean, I wouldn't give that up though for anything.
It sounds all rosy that Denise was okay and we were great with, Denise staying home with the kids and all that. On the other side, I kind of became my dad, the workaholic, and that for as great as our strides have been, we've also had moments of, in my specific case, a lack of clarity and a spiking of cortisol and all those unhealthy things that, sort of were really for a long time becoming a way of life for me. So,
listen, it's real, right? We're not perfect, and so it's so difficult to manage all those things and be the breadwinner and still be present. But I would say is that this is what helps me is that doing, even if I'm traveling 10 or 15 minutes of meditation, because what I really try to do is be present in whatever I'm doing. And that's an acquired skill, I think, because even if you're spending 10 minutes with somebody, if you're looking at them, because how many times you talk to someone and they're clearly somewhere else, they're shaking their head and they're on their damn phone. And you're like, come on. My kids, I don't accept it. But others, you're just like, oh, you're not listening to me.
You're not listening.
And it's an acquired skill. You have to say, the heck with whatever's going on. Just pay attention.
So a takeaway for me, for sure, 100% is I'm going to get a gym membership for my 2 daughters, because my other daughter is already at a gym and she started working out. But the takeaway like from this for me is like, I need to get those other 2 active. The one is in volleyball, so she may not need the gym membership, but the third one, the middle one, definitely does. But before you start with your takeaway, I definitely want to go into the 5 best things that we can do like right now to stay healthy. And then the 5 myth busters where you're like, stay away from that. And I know you talked about it in the show, but you're about to hit on some of like how to stay healthy. And I'm like, oh, before you do that, everyone always wants to know, like, what's the top 5? We do a top 5 takeaway. We try to on every episode. So I would love it for you to tell us right now, like the 5 best things we could do to stay healthy while you're traveling, or, being active in your work and maybe not walking around as much. So your 5 top 5, because right now I already know I'm getting a gym membership for my daughter. So what else can I do?
And I think I will start with what you just said. I think movement with purpose is fine. If you want to get a gym membership, it's fine. I don't think you need to. I think you just have to get them to move with purpose, with whatever in their life there is. I mean, even if they're in a winter climate, take a walk out there. To me, going to a gym is great. Please go ahead and do that. But for those who don't want to go to a gym, I mean, really, you can do something that you incorporate in your life. That's what's going to work. Okay. If you have to go to work and you have to take the elevator every single time, just walk the stairs. If you have to, play with your kids, you don't have enough time, play with your kids instead of going to the gym, because that's time that's purposeful. To me, it's purposeful movement. I'm not taking away from the gym. If that gives people joy, it's great, but you don't have to. The second is, we talked about these, I'll talk about the 5 pillars as one of the things you have to do. Please try to get, if you can, even small purposes, small wins in your life that'll help every part of your body. I think also incorporate spirituality, even if it's 10 minutes a day. For me, sometimes it's only 15 minutes that I just sit down and meditate. It doesn't mean I go to the top of a mountain. I don't go cross-legged and say Om. It's just being able to be there and not think about anything except just your breath. Just start with that. I also think that if you are alone, even if you're not with your family, try to develop a tribe or a community of yours. Either it's virtual or within your community, 3 or 4 people that you really trust. And sometimes you can't find them, within your vicinity, but try to find, maybe even online, even some support group that helps you. It's really, really important to be able to have people that support your ideas, support your ambitions, support your likes and dislikes, so that you can get honest feedback, right? One of the biggest things that if you don't have that group, you tend to just go off in tangents. And then when things don't work out, you really don't have a support group, and that can lead to so much mental anguish. So I would talk about having a community, spirituality. Please try to, if you can, if you're someplace where you can eat your food, meaning eat whole foods that you prepare yourself. Try not to get it from some processed place. I tell my patients, don't eat anything from a can or a box if you can. Just a simple thing. Start with that. So those are my 5 pillars about what to do with your health. But as far as if you're on the road, please you guys are doing it, but 6 meaningful hours, if not more, of rest. Try to be able to get the options in a restaurant that have fruits and vegetables in different colors. Don't eat the same things every day, because your body needs different cofactors and different vitamins to affect your immune system as well as your mental health, right? So you want to be able to do that. So not just one specific vegetables, if you can find others. I think that I would actually avoid the beef jerky and whatever nuts, and go with even the prepared foods as healthy as possible, because at least you know what's in that stuff, instead of figuring out what somebody made in some factory, and if they're being honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, when I opened up the bag of beef jerky and, finished it a day or 2 later, looking at the label, I realized just how much sugar is actually in that thing.
And it's not good sugar either, right? So people say, well, Dr. Nandi, you eat an apple and that's sweet.
Different
I don't
sugar.
think that's good for you, right? It's complex carbohydrates, which means that it slowly increases in your body. So it's okay to have sugar that's incorporated into fruits because they have fiber. It's slowly absorbed. That's the idea. You don't want simple sugars that have rapid rise, rapid lowering, increase your insulin, increase inflammation. So I talked about that. As far as what things you can do to be able to help your immune system, make sure you get enough vitamin C. If you can't have fruits and veggies, take a supplement. But look at the label to make sure you know if it's manufactured in a place that's been inspected, what country it comes from. Do a little bit of research. I don't think echinacea is a bad thing. When you get sick, I do love garlic. If you can incorporate that into your life, if you're not traveling, like the both of you, and if you're at home, incorporate garlic if you can to every meal along with onion. I think it's great if you can do that. As far as supplements, if you can get vitamin C, beta carotene, zinc, and then try to have a probiotic. The way I look at probiotics is that you look and make sure that you at least have, if you can, 10 billion colony forming units, CFUs, and then look at the expiration date and to make sure that it has the same amount of units when it expires, right, within the expired date. Because what happens is that probiotics are bugs, they decrease over time. So have a good probiotic if you can.
I just bought a bottle too. So, I mean, I literally just went to the health food store and got a bottle. So I'm gonna have to look at that. Is it good to refrigerate the probiotic? Does it matter?
Some it is. They'll tell you some of them are, but most of them now are freeze dried, so you don't have to. I would try to pick ones you don't have to because one less thing to do. And then a prebiotic, right? The food for the probiotics. So probiotics are billions and billions of bugs, typically bacteria that are in your intestine, that you're putting in your intestine. Your intestine has trillions, right? What is that? 1,000 times more? So it's going to take a while to get that better. If you give the probiotics food, which are just things like that have fiber in them, that'll help to have them grow. But you can get now pre and probiotics together to help the probiotics proliferate to get, grow faster so you can have better effect. So I would do a probiotic. I also like fermented foods. Like if you like pickles, if you like kimchi, if you like yogurt, if you like sauerkraut, those are great probiotics. You can buy them, but also do those things. Every country in the planet, every culture didn't have refrigeration, so they had ways in which to store food. And when they did that, you get these beautiful probiotic foods that are delicious. So if you can find some that you like, I love sauerkraut, I love kimchi, I like all these foods but if you don't, just take a probiotic supplement. I think those would be enough to be able to get you going. And then everything else we talked about, right?
That's really, really helpful on the road for sure. So I always carry a bottle of probiotics. So last trip, I didn't have one, so I had to pick up one, and I'm going to look it up and make sure it has enough CFUs in it. But now the prebiotic is something totally I never heard of, so I'm going to look into that. And then what are the 5 worst things you can do on the road if you're sick? Like, we know to stay away from fried foods. I mean, you've mentioned, that just burgers, fries, definitely not good for you. But can you give us 5 solids that just avoid those? Like, somebody said to me, don't buy soup from a grocery store that's already pre-prepared because it has too much sodium. But if I'm sick, I want soup. But if you say to me, Denise, don't do it, I'm not going to do it. So what's the 5 worst things?
I think number 1 is not getting enough rest. Number 2 is really, getting these concoctions that people tell you to have, like we talked about the colloidal silver. You don't want to do things like that. But I think it's okay to buy soup from a store as long as you know where it's the store and you look at it and you try to figure out if it's manufactured okay. I mean, if you're on the road, you don't have a choice, right? So I also think that trying to say that I'm going to take vitamin C and that's going to decrease, make my cold go poof, that's not the way to do it. I still think really, really try to stay centered even when you're sick. It's important not to get stressed out, because when you're stressed and when you're really looking at things not in a global way, even that stress will help you prolong your sickness, right? And so I think doing those things will be helpful, and not really listening to every single person that tells you, I would stay off the internet when you're sick, because you just get so many people that are just sucking you in to try to buy some, God knows what rat poison that they're selling that may not do anything for you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I was convinced I had acid reflux when it was really pneumonia. So I'm glad I finally sought out the help of medical professionals. Yeah, funny.
Because Google Doctor, huh? You went to a Google Doctor.
I mean, I was adhering to a strict diet of fried fish and beer all throughout the state of Florida for the month of January. But that was not, I know you're surprised, Doc, to hear that was not really getting it done. But anyway. anyway, at any rate, the coughing was not subsiding, and ultimately they decided, well, it's not the bacterial variety. It was sort of a post-viral pneumonia, as explained to me. And when
could have been RSV, it was going on everywhere at the time. But the one thing I'll tell you is lots of people, when they hear folks like us talking, they just think, I can't do this, because I've done something a certain way my entire life. What I would say is that start with one thing of all the things we talked about, and just add one additional one every week. Just small changes, dramatic differences in your life. It's kind of like cleaning your house. I don't know it's the best analogy I can give you, right? Your house is in complete disarray, let's say. And if you just pick small things to do every single day and then add on to it, you'd be surprised how much you can accomplish. But if you look at it as overwhelming, like, I can't get off my phone tomorrow, doc, I can't do it. But if you spend, 10 minutes less every day and then add on to it, or add spirituality, or each one of those pillars, if you add something that helps you with purpose 1 week, next week you add something that's moving with purpose, something with your diet, something with spirituality, something with community, you can really accomplish things. And it doesn't have to be you're climbing Mount Everest, right? You just take one small steps. It's really important to me that people understand you can do small things that lead to amazing results in your life. And as a society, if we do those small things, I think it could change the entire landscape of what we do.
Right. Can I ask you 2 quick questions?
Of course.
My first is, so if you had to rattle off a handful of foods that help with anti-inflammation, what would they be?
I think berries. I love any kind of berries that are colored, right? Blueberries. I love oranges and apples. I also think that using kale would be phenomenal. And I love salmon. And for a lot of people, they need to eat meat. So I always tell them, if you could have, grain-fed, if you can, non-grain-fed and pasture-raised, free-range animals, that's what I would say. Because in our country, it's very difficult to tell people not to eat meat. So I want to make sure that last part, you want to get meat that's really raised in the right way, and not just given a bunch of grain and not being able to roam. So those are the things I would say, the foods that I think will help you to be able to at least decrease inflammation, but also help the rest of your body, including your gut.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So it seems like so much information just comes back to avoid as many processed foods as you can, and eat macros. So that's my big takeaway. Thank you for that. And then my other question is this: you, as a physician, when you see somebody, is there a physical indicator that you can say, like, that registers in your head as a physician, where you say this person has great gut health right now?
Physical symptoms, physical signs. I think that number one, that they look rested, they look at ease, meaning that they don't seem distressed, and they have very few chronic illnesses.
Wow. Okay.
When you look at them, but then when you ask symptoms, you ask them simple questions, right? Do you feel all your bowel movements and bloating? But outside of the GI system, do you feel clarity in your mind? Do you feel as if you don't get sick very often? So symptoms and signs outside of the intestinal tract will help you to know also if your intestinal tract is working well. So people who have bad GI health will have what's called brain fog. They're constantly having lapses of clarity. Their immune system is not functioning well. Their circulatory system is not affecting well. As far as GI symptoms, having regular bowel movements, not being bloated, not having symptoms of let's say acid reflux, gas and bloating, those kinds of things. But besides that, but the intestinal tract, someone appears well, and they've got lack of unrest in their body when you look at them.
Got it. Okay, very good.
Wow, this was so incredibly helpful.
It was. Thank you.
Oh my God.
My pleasure. You guys are a lot of fun to talk to.
Thank you. You are just really fantastic. You answered all of our questions. I know listeners are going to love that we asked these specific questions, because it's just what everyone kind of talks about and thinks about it, to have a doctor on tap to like ask right now, like, okay, this is what my friends are saying. And, we all talk about the myths, and you definitely debunked some of them, and almost all of them. So, and now we have a better idea of when we're on the road, I'll definitely have more berries in our cooler, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So this is really helpful. Thank you so much for your time. We know how busy you are. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
My pleasure. You guys.
It's really, the way that you were able to tie in the mental, the physical, the spiritual, all of your pillars. It's refreshing to hear that from a medical professional. So, I think so often in our society, those certain things, the metaphysics of health sort of get attributed to being hippy dippy. So it really is, something refreshing to see and hear from a medical professional. We really appreciate you spending time with us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. You guys stay well. Hopefully, no more illnesses for a while.
I hope not.
Hopefully.
All right. Have a great day.
Nandi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that sums up our episode for now with Dr. Nandi. We look forward, hopefully, to having him on the show again in the future and being in better health when we do so. That's a wrap for this episode. Take them out.
Empty nest, full tank.
See you guys next week.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.